We're ready whenever you are.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to welcome you to the Planning and Zoning Commission's meeting of Tuesday, September 2nd, 2025. Sorry. I have a call to order. Roll call, please.
Tom Degenhart.
Present.
David Rodas.
Present.
Mike Brinkley.
Present.
Jerry Nolte.
Here.
Tom Decker.
Present.
Randall Morris.
Present.
Mark Beggs.
Present. So a few housekeeping items before we get started, just so everyone knows this meeting is being recorded. So we ask everyone who wants to speak, if they'd step to the podium, state their name and address for the record. That makes it easier for them to transcribe the minutes. And then they can keep track of who's saying what, when. First order on the agenda is election of Mark Beggs as chairman.
Yeah, to give you a
Do
little.
I have to do this? Or?
To give you a little information, the bylaws are specific that the vice chair be elected chair in the case that the chair resigns from the board. So I think we would do a motion and a second just like normal, but it does not give the board any options to nominate somebody else.
I'll make a motion to nominate Mark Beggs as.
Second.
Vote.
Tom Decker.
Yes.
Randall Morris.
Yes.
Jerry Nolte.
Yes.
Mike Brinkley.
Yes.
David Rodas.
Yes.
Tom Degenhart.
Yes.
And Mark Beggs.
Abstain.
Motion carries.
So I do want to thank Brad for his service to the commission. He did a great job, so he's going to be missed, but wish him the best of luck. Next item on the agenda is approval of the July 1st, 2025 Planning and Zoning Commission minutes.
Chairman, we actually need to elect a vice chair,
Oh.
since you are the chair now.
I'm sorry, skipped right over that. So I will take nominations from the floor for vice chair.
I nominate Tom Decker.
Second.
Is that a surprised look?
It was one of those Shanghai, I think. Yeah. Any other nominations from the floor? I'll close nominations and ask for. Need a motion to vote, or can we just vote on?
I think you can vote a first, you've got a first and a second, so
Okay.
just ask for a roll call.
Roll call vote, please.
Randall Morris,
Yes.
Tom Degenhart,
Yes.
David Rodas,
Yes.
Mike Brinkley,
Yes.
Jerry Nolte,
Yes.
Mark Beggs,
Yes.
and Tom Decker.
Abstain.
Motion carries.
So now we'll move to the approval of the July 1st, 2025 Planning Zoning Commission minutes. I have a motion to approve or discuss.
Make a motion that we accept and approve the minutes of July 1st, 2025.
I have a second.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Jerry Nolte,
Yes.
Tom Decker,
Yes.
Randall Morris,
Yes.
Tom Degenhart,
Yes.
David Rodas,
Abstain.
Mike Brinkley, and Mark Beggs.
Yes.
Motion carries.
So as we move into our regular agenda items, our typical format for these meetings are the staff will give their report. We'll let the commission ask questions of the staff. Once that's completed, then we'll ask for testimony from the gallery of people in favor. Those who oppose will each get a chance to speak. We ask that it's not a big crowd here tonight, but try not to repeat. If someone's already spoke in favor, you can stand up, say I agree with the previous testimony, as opposed to going through the whole thing again. After that is all completed and everyone said their piece, then we'll close the floor for public comment. It'll be the commission's turn to discuss what's been presented. They'll make a decision, motions, seconds, and vote, or table the issue that's at hand. So that's the basic format. So if the staff would like to, our first regular agenda item is case number July 25-113A. It's a public hearing for approval of revisions to the 2011 Clay County Land Development Code, an ordinance encompassing the zoning and subdivision of land in unincorporated Clay County. The applicant is Clay County. and I find it unusual that it doesn't talk about what, it's actually, we're actually modifying the code for intermodal storage containers. So that's what we're talking about revising.
Yes, Chairman, I would like to add the report as part of the official record.
So be it.
So obviously in July, we talked about amending the specific section for shipping containers in the Land Development Code. Little background is that the shipping container code was added to the Land Development Code in September of 2020. Before that, the code was silent on shipping containers, but we saw about that time is when we started seeing lots of containers being dispersed across the county. And what spurred this possible revision was a Board of Zoning Adjustment meeting from May, where the board granted a variance to allow a shipping container on a lot that was roughly 3 acres. We have received recommendations and comments from citizens. That was part of your staff report, and obviously you took public comment at the July meeting. So I'm just going to be real quick and kind of go over what we have now, what was proposed in July, and what's in the updated September proposal. So the current code does not allow shipping containers on lots less than 10 acres. The July proposal did not have a minimum lot size, but it staggered up from there. From 0 to less than 5, you're allowed 1, and then it went up from there. The revision in the September proposal sets the minimum at 3 acres because of some discussion had during that July meeting. And I want to stress, you do not have to accept the July proposal as is or the September proposal. You can add, delete, morph the two together, whatever the board would like to do. So here's kind of the main differences. So as I stated, July, you could have it on any size lot as long as you met the setback requirements. September requires at least 3 acres. The setbacks stayed the same from each proposal. Both of them do not allow the container to sit in front of the front build line of the home. And the screening is different. The July proposal, it was varied from 25 to 75% based on the parcel size. And the September proposal is a minimum of 75% of the container has to be screened on all sides. We added a height limit of 10 feet, which would also include if they build a footing that's 4 feet in the air, that counts towards that 10-foot maximum height. And then both proposals have that it should be painted to match the home or an accessory structure. Again, those discussion points from July were the lot size, the screening, and the height requirements. There was quite a bit of discussion about the lot size and what type of lots you could fit a shipping container with those setbacks. And we have so kind of an interactive map here where once it uploads, I'm going to go to a couple neighborhoods and show you what this map shows. So this right here is Private Gardens. So this is Plattsburgh Road, just north of Liberty city limits. This is Prairie Field, which is the subdivision that's under construction currently. So if I zoom in, these red hashed areas are areas on each parcel where a container could be placed meeting the setback requirements. Now, please keep in mind, and I'll show you a couple examples, it does not take into account the front build line, which the revision does. So if you look at Prairie Field, all those lots are too small to even fit a container with those setback requirements. But if you come over to Private Gardens, and I'm looking for a good example. So like this one right here on the corner lot. It has obviously they can't put it where the pool and the existing house are, so there's a very small portion of the lot that maybe they could fit a shipping container, maybe they couldn't, depending on how big the container was. But most of these lots that are an acre or bigger, generally there's at least a small spot that a container could be placed. Now, like this lot, you're not going to get a container on it. So if I zoom out, and this shows us in this frame of the map, there are 4 parcels under an acre that could have a container, or at least a small spot for a container. There's 63 that are from 1 to 3 acres that have a location, and there's 96 parcels that are greater than 3 acres that have a location. So I'd be happy to zoom in on any, Berkshire Glen is another good one. You can see there's just very limited locations where you could get it on those smaller parcels, but there are places that it could be placed. So that's the summary, and Shane and I would be happy to answer any questions the board has as well.
The comparison that you made, you mentioned that in the July 1 that there was variable vegetation that would be necessary, but you didn't actually note that that was only on one side. According to July, there's no screening required for neighbors on either side or behind the storage container. I'm just curious why that hadn't been mentioned.
Why I didn't mention it tonight?
Well, yeah, in the contrast, that seems to be a particularly important piece given our discussion.
Yeah, I
in
thought
July.
after the discussion last month, it was pretty clear that the board members wanted buffering or landscaping or some kind of obstruction on either side. Now, to be honest, I know in the report we put that staff would recommend the July version because we feel that meets what we've heard from the public at last month's meeting and just in general as we work with citizens on a daily basis. However, I would say that the biggest stipulation that staff would like, or that staff thinks is consistent with what the citizens want, is not placing a minimum lot size to have a container. If you meet the setback requirements, so if you changed the table in the September proposal, staff would support that proposal as well, if that makes sense.
Change the table to 0.
0 to 5.
That first one, 0 to 5. Well, I think it's pretty evident. I went back and listened to the BZA hearing that brought this to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and it was aesthetics, basically. Everybody, it was a variance to allow someone to have a container on a smaller lot. And a lot of the people that were in favor of it were neighbors, drove by the place multiple times a day, had been doing that for years and never even knew there was a container there. Commissioner Lawson, who is on Boarding and Zoning, just actually visited the site and only found 1 of 2. She didn't even know there was the other one there. So that's how well that property owner had he just taken measure to make sure it was aesthetically, it wasn't just an eyesore. And I don't know exactly how he screened them, but I know he did say that he had painted them a dark color because they were under trees and they kind of blended in with the shadows. And so I know we have in this proposal that it should match the house. Well, if someone has a white house and a white barn, or all their buildings are white, I don't know if that's a good idea to paint the container white. I mean, I think you ought to, say you're going to screen it with evergreens. I mean, if I was doing that, I would want to paint it dark green to kind of make it blend in so that the neighbors don't see it, people driving by on the streets don't see it. And I think that was kind of a running theme through that whole BZA hearing. It was aesthetics. There was one person that speaked in opposition to it, and he lived in the subdivision where the variance was being given. They brought up CCR's conditions, covenants, conditions, and restrictions, which almost every HOA that I know of has, or subdivision has. The applicant came and said, I didn't even know anything about them. I didn't know that was a deal. And so I think even though the county is going to allow these containers, I think the CCRs in those subdivisions are probably going to restrict it. I know where I live, they wouldn't be allowed based on the CCRs that we have. I talked to Star Development, who has several developments around. And I said, and I was curious what their CCR said, because I didn't want the county to allow it and then have neighbors suing neighbors because someone put a container in their backyard. I think that's bad. And so what I found out is a lot of the newer CCRs are written to not allow them. So even though the county is going to do it, I don't think it's going to be allowed in the subdivisions. But that said, if the applicants don't know that those CCRs don't allow it, and they go out and they spend $3,000 or $4,000, set a container, and then the HOA shows up at their door, I think that could be an issue. So I think part of whatever we decide here, I think that should be part of the process, is to make sure that the owners, the applicants, have checked that out. Because last thing we want, I mean, it's better to find that out on the front end than it is on the back. And plus, we don't want neighbors fighting with each other. So anyway, another thing, I'll just mention another thing that came out of the BZA was they wanted to be able to take these cases on a case-by-case basis. So they were willing to grant variances to our existing code, and they were actually, at least two of them were in favor of doing that on a case-by-case basis. The only problem with that is the BZA has some very strict criteria that they have to meet in order to grant a variance, one of which is the variance you're requesting can't be caused by your actions, which that's a pretty high hurdle to get over. And I don't, even though they wanted to do it with the BZA, I don't think that's the mechanism to use. So maybe we should consider permitting these and letting planning and zoning, or KIP's office, kind of do that on a case-by-case basis. That was just some of the things that came out of the BZA, if you guys didn't get a chance to go listen to that.
And I would add to that, that would be part of our permit process would be, generally we're taking our permits online. We would provide them the facts that they need to check their HOA covenants, and then they would have to verify that they have read that and check the box that they've checked that. So I don't know that we want to get into checking the covenants for them, but we can at least notify them that they should look into that to limit the issues. And we'd be happy to do that as part of the permit process.
Yeah, and I'd agree with you. I don't think that's the county's, we've never stuck our fingers in that business, so I don't think we should start, but they should at least be aware of it, I think. And I assume the building permits, you'd have a plot plan that shows locations so that they get inside the setbacks.
Yes, so the initial review would be, do they meet the setback requirements? Are they placing it on a flat surface, hard surface, which is what the criteria says? And then depending on what you decide about, blending it or painting it, we would verify that they're going to meet the code in that fashion and notify them of the buffering requirements. And then once they have their permit and they get the container in place, we would do a site visit to make sure that they met all those requirements.
And so the other issue I had, and we've talked about this, is I don't think there's really any provision in here other than to say that they have to be maintained. I can't remember what the verbiage you used, but they had to be maintained in some kind of condition. I think, and as we spoke, I think I would like to see an inspection done on those, say every 5 years. They got to be painted. They got to be painted every 5 to 7. Paint on a house. So I think we should be following up on those, because I can see where someone, especially a storage container that's out back, probably isn't going to get the most attention. And I'd hate to see them start becoming dilapidated. They screen with landscaping, bushes die, they don't replace them. So I think, and when they know they've got a 5-year inspection, I think it kind of is an incentive for them to keep them up. Because again, I think aesthetics, from what I've heard, is the biggest thing. And it sounds like if they keep them, when people don't see them, people really don't care. The neighbors don't care about them. Yeah.
The aesthetics on the deal, I mean, it's just like, if you have one sitting next to a barn and it's painted the same color as the barn, it doesn't stand out.
Right.
You know, in honesty, that's aesthetic. You wouldn't need any kind of screenage because, I mean, when you build a barn, you don't put screenage around it.
Right.
You know, I mean, appearance is what a lot of, I mean, some people say no pickup in the front yard and landscape around it looks great. The other guy might have an 80 with wheels off, it looks like crap. You know, I mean, it's all in presentation. And it'd be the same way with the container. Now, but where you going to draw the line as far as, you know, when you start getting into the ag side of things, that's not going to fly.
The problem with that, though, is that if you have a barn, then you're on sufficiently large acreage that you don't really need to worry about what your neighbors are going to see. Whereas I'm concerned about the small acreages, the 3 acres, 4 acres, 5 acres.
That needs to be more pinpointed.
But yeah, but that's the one in which, you know, I am very just concerned about what recourse neighbors are going to have once a container is placed on property. And a small, if it's 3 acres, I can handle that. You know, it's sufficiently distant from neighbors that probably it would be okay. So I don't see quite the justification for having it on a smaller lot. And if somebody has 2.7 acres, they can go to the BZA and get an exemption from that. I know there's a problem with the rules with that.
Yeah. I think it is a problem. And I agree with you. And because the county has not allowed these, if the people who write the covenants, conditions, and restrictions for a subdivision weren't forward-thinking enough or didn't write them broad enough to eliminate them, it could cause a problem.
That's right.
And so I think one of the things we should consider is if we're going to change this is that we don't make it effective tomorrow, that we give these give them these neighborhoods, if they don't want them, a chance to get together, meet, and change their CCRs. You know, restrict them. If the neighborhood doesn't want them, they should be allowed to amend their covenants, conditions, restrictions to disallow them or not allow them in the neighborhood.
And how will all of the HOAs be notified?
That is a question for staff, and I don't know how you do that.
I'm not sure how many people would come to a meeting like this if they weren't also in favor of the containers. What notifications were given generally? I mean, to be alerted that, whoa, I might have a container, next to on the property next to me. So I'm just concerned about even the notifications for this meeting.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, and I was concerned about that as well because it's not like we've got a special use permit and everybody within
That's right.
a radius
Exactly.
gets notified. This is a broad sweeping, and the BZA also had that concern. They said we're making broad code changes, and one of their concerns is that there was going to be unforeseen circumstances, because you just can't. Even though that map is great, I think that's very helpful. Knowing, you almost have to look specifically at each and every lot to see where it's going to be a problem. So the BZA was hoping that this would be written with some flexibility, and and I think that's what we should try to do is get some flexibility in this code so that the planning and zoning group gets to look at that and can say yes, no, and make some conditions so that we don't have problems like what you're bringing.
Kip, can I ask you a question? If this was written in a way that, it didn't have a lot limitation, is there a way to put in a rider, so to speak, that if the lot is less than 3 acres, Somehow the neighbors have to be notified, although I'm still not sure that they would have any standing to object to it or do anything about it.
Yeah, I mean, they're going
I
to
mean, you-
require a building permit, but that doesn't require notification.
Or maybe we could have it as, you can't have a lot less than 3 acres unless approved by the planning and zoning, department. And you can take it on a case-by-case basis for something less than that and notify neighbors. And then you can decide whether you're going to approve it or not.
So I suppose you could think about requiring a conditional use permit, which would kick in the public process and the mailers, but we would have to amend the use table and pick the zonings, every zoning that would be under 3 acres, but you're still not going to catch them all because there's ag zone lots that are less than an acre. I'd have to think about that a little bit more to give you a definite answer. But I think you could probably write it away. It's just how much of the code do we have to change to make that fit within the code?
So a conditional use permit for any container being put on a lot of less than 3 acres. And then at least people would be notified so they could object if they want to.
Yeah, I think you could, several of the uses, like a fence, for instance, if you want to build a fence over 8 feet, it requires a conditional use permit. And it specifically says that in the fence section, so I don't know why you couldn't add it in the shipping container section.
Would that require hearing?
Yeah, yes.
And what's the cost? I mean, that seems like a lot of time tied up with staff and,
Conditional use permit is $375 plus $190 to put it in the newspaper plus the mailings. So somewhere $600, $600 plus.
I think that really complicates it. Although I agree with what you're saying, and I see the point. The other side of that I see also is if you have 2 neighbors that don't get along and you wanted to put it in, and even if you gold plated it, it would never be good enough, But then I think that would fall back, I would see that falling back on staff to kind of make that determination. I don't think the neighbors should be able to veto, that. But I think if staff thinks it's reasonable, that's what I would trust, rather than going through a conditional use permit hearing and all the expense and the time for storage, for a $3,000 storage container. I mean, it seems like that's excessive, but that's me.
And would you like me to distribute?
Sure, yeah, so I sent over some stuff. I just kind of went through and added some things that I thought would be helpful. My biggest concern was trying to present it so that it was not confusing. I've got one. Oh, let me have, because you were going to change some of the wording, so let me take a look at it. So basically kind of what we've been talking about, I just took the September proposed amendment and just changed a few things, or just added a few things. Like they didn't have the building permit. Was that correct, Kip?
I'm sorry, I missed the question.
The building permit got deleted somehow, or was it actually in there?
It was deleted, but the thought all along was that a building permit was going to be required.
Yeah.
But this specifically says that, and because I wanted to get rid of the farm use building being attached to the acreage size. So the way it's written in the September and Mark's updated one is if you're using it for general storage, it's a building permit is required. If it's a farm use only building, just like any other building, if you come to us and say it's only used to store farm implements and hay and whatever you're going to store in it that's farm related, then it's a farm building permit. The difference is there's no fee and we don't do inspections on the farm building. Obviously, we're going to have to look at, they're still going to have to meet the setback requirements, so that throws a little wrench into it, but it is what it is.
So basically, what I did was under subparagraph B, I just added, put that back in, a building permit is required for intermodal shipping containers, just because I thought they needed to know where they are and see a plat map, see where they're going to put them, make sure they're within setbacks or inside the setbacks. And then on D, it read, the container should be painted to match the adjacent accessory building or home. And again, I was just thinking, hey, why would paint it white if it could be something other color, a different color? So I just added to minimize should be painted to minimize the visual impact and help conceal the intermodal shipping container from the street and adjacent properties. And the paint color needed to be approved by P&Z, just to give them flexibility. And then under H, what it says, each side of the intermodal shipping container shall be screened from view no less than 75%. I just added it needed to be screened from the street and adjacent property. I mean, if they put it behind their house, I don't see any reason to screen the side that's facing them.
Facing the house.
So I just said, the street, adjacent property owners, that's probably what we really care about. And then under J, here's the verbiage they had in there. Should be kept in good condition and maintained in compliance with these regulations. And I just added, at the resident's expense, the intermodal shipping container shall be inspected by Clay County Planning and Zoning every 5 years. Inspection fees shall not be excessive and will be per the fee schedule approved by the Clay County Commission. And I think that's an annual, I don't know, do you review that annually?
Yes,
I just didn't want to see them having a $1,000 inspection fee to go out, like
And-
basically a drive-by.
And right now, the permit fee would be $90 and the inspection fee would be $90.
Yeah. And so those kind of things, I think, and those were just kind of what I pulled from the BZA, and I thought that kind of satisfied a lot of the questions people had and the commissioners that were on the BZA. I think that kind of way they were talking, I thought that kind of met some of the conditions they were trying to get to, which was just some flexibility.
So when the smoke all clears on the ag side of things, what are the restrictions?
Well, if it's an ag use only building, you would come and get a farm building permit. We still would need the plot plan showing the location, which we require on all farm buildings. And then we would verify that you meet whatever other standards are in the shipping container. So just because it's a farm building doesn't mean it doesn't have to meet all these other
I mean, we can put
standards.
steel bins up and you can't do anything on that for grain storage, other trailers. I mean, they're very, very beneficial on the farm. You store hay, feed, because they're sealed, equipment. I mean, it's,
Yeah, unless you add an exemption where farm use only structures don't have to abide by these regulations, they would have to.
that's one thing I want to make sure of.
Okay, well, let's come back to that, because I think you've got a great point on that, because like I said, anything else you set out there doesn't have to meet these requirements. Yes, so,
But please keep in mind, a farm building is allowed on any parcel 5+ acres.
I'm sorry, say that again?
A farm building is allowed on any parcel 5+ acres. So you may want to set a minimum acreage with that.
Well, yeah, anything over 40 acres is considered ag.
Over 20?
Well, if we're talking subdividing, to keep your ag zoning, you have to have 20. But you could set a minimum, if it's a farm use only building and it's on a parcel 20 or 40+ acres, whatever you chose, it does not have to.
But I think the problem we have is old zoning, let people subdivide ag ground down to an acre and keep the ag zoning. So we've got 1 acre ag zone parcels out there. And that's this broad, painting with this broad brush. We don't know those specifics,
I'm more concerned about the true
Yeah, make it
Agricultural.
Gotcha.
particular
Yeah.
lot size.
Think about
Above.
how we should word that. And I think we ought to circle back to that after we
yeah.
kind of finish up here and when we start our discussion again, so. Director Jones, you have anything else?
Not unless you have questions for me.
I have a question for you, Kip. On the setbacks, and you're wanting a plot plan that's going to show the location of the connex, Is that plot plan going to have to be developed by a registered surveyor?
Not for an accessory structure, no. We generally, for the farm buildings and accessory buildings, we'll print an aerial image from our computer in the office, or they'll go on Google Earth. They'll indicate where the structure's going, and they'll put dimensions on it, and we will double check on our map to make sure their numbers are adding up.
All right, very good. So do you have another question? So if you had 10 acres with no house, no outbuildings, no nothing, you could bring in 3 connexes, meet the setbacks, paint them green and plant some trees, and that's the only thing on your property?
Only if it's a farm use only building. And a regular accessory use, which is what the other type of shipping container would fall under, is not allowed before a home is built.
Without a home?
Yes, correct.
And we're working on the table. The September has 1 container from 3 to 5, 2 from 5 to 10, 3 from 10 to 24, from 20 to 40, and 6 40 plus. Although I guess that's all up for discussion, but that's what's in that September proposal. But, okay. Any other questions for staff?
Well, I
Thank you.
thought at our July meeting, I didn't think that the commission was much in favor of the 0 to 5 acre scenario, but we were more in favor of the 3 acre to 5 acre scenario. But the 0, you know, you could have an acre of land is 209 feet by 209 feet, and you can meet setbacks on 1 acre. So,
Yeah, I think that's how I remember. I think that was the concern, was on those small acreages. Yeah.
and especially if you got, you know, less than 1 acre that's zoned ag, if you meet setbacks, you could put one out there.
If you have a house on the property, because you wouldn't be allowed the farm use. But yes, if there was a house and you met the setbacks and all the other requirements, yes, you would be allowed.
Any other questions for staff? Okay. I'll open the floor for public comment, so those in favor, please step to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and we'll take your comments.
I'm not good at this. Chad Spicer, 22201 Northeast 188th, Holt, Missouri. There was a lot of discussion about the lot size and stuff that I believe, if I understood right, was based on the previous proposal of 0 to 5. And I think, isn't that what this mostly shows? Is the smaller, less than 3 acre?
Yes, the subdivisions I zoomed in on were anywhere from 1 to probably 3 to 5 acres, yes.
So do you have the possibility to change your schematics there to show it where, like right now it says buildable parcels 1 to 3. If you change that to over 3 acres, wouldn't that eliminate all 32 of those? And you understand what I'm trying to get at?
Yeah, if they put, I don't think the software will do that, but yes, if they put a minimum lot size of 3 acres, yes, it would eliminate a lot of those from being able to have a
And
container.
hopefully eliminate a lot of the potential issues that have been discussed. And then I had a question about if you paint, I don't think you paint houses every 5 years.
5 to 7, yeah.
And, you know, could that be extended to 10 years possibly? And then would it need to be the $90 fee every time you guys come out and just drive by and look?
I mean, the way I'd envision that is they would come out and inspect it every 5 years. If your paint is good in 5 years, then you're good for the next 5. They come back out at 10, if it needs paint, and they're probably gonna have to.
Yeah, but then you're
have to
paying
paint.
essentially a $100 fee to come out and
Yeah.
look at that.
And the reason, I mean, if somebody's got to pay that fee, and I don't think the rest of the taxpayers in Clay County should have to pay to inspect something that a resident's getting a benefit from. So I think that cost needs to set with the people that are actually benefiting from that. And so that's kind of why I thought that was the best way to handle that.
Could it be lower?
Well,
I mean, does it really cost $90 to drive by?
So the county commission approves a fee schedule with the budget once a year.
Yeah.
And that's what the one-time inspection fee is set at, which I will tell you, having paid third-party inspectors to cover for our building inspector, we are extremely low.
yeah. And if you think about that, it's $100 over a 5-year period, it's $20 a year.
I do
mean, that's pretty
understand that
reasonable, I
part,
think.
but, you know, in the meantime, we're also paying taxes
I know
for
that.
that service as well.
Right.
You know, so it's kind of
Right.
like, almost like double dipping.
Yeah, presumably it won't be just a drive-by, because they're going to have to get out and inspect all sides to make sure that the screening is in place, check the paint, et cetera. So it actually is going to take some time
Yeah.
and effort on somebody's part.
And I would hope that, you know, when they're out doing their normal runs, doing building permits, they'll run a report, hey, here's the containers we need to look at in this next month. And they'll hit those, you know, on their way, rather than making special trips, reduce their costs. And there's no reason why they can't talk to the commission, say, well, here's our cost for doing that. And maybe they make a special fee for intermodal containers. I don't know, that's kind of up to staff. I don't know what their costs are, but we definitely, they need to charge whatever it is that the cost is.
Yeah, and we review that yearly, and we would probably do a test run if that's what you choose to do, and see actually how much time it takes, and if it needs to be changed, we'll propose a change.
Yeah.
I do support it. You know, I think the starting out at the 3 acres would eliminate a lot of problems, and I'm good with that, so I think that's all I got.
Great. Well, thank you for your
Thank you.
comments. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor?
Yeah, I'm Burl Spicer, 200 105 Northeast 188th Street, 22105, excuse me. I hear all this talk about, I'd like to ask you a question first. Is there any restrictions on a Morton building other than specifications? A carport, a machine shed, or a tractor trailer? Is there any restrictions to those 4 things?
And are you okay with me answering? So the tractor trailer, I do not believe there's anything in the code to restrict that, but we're going to look at that. You said machine shop, Morton
Machine shed.
building. As long as you present the things that we need for a building permit, we would issue, and it met all the regulations, we would issue a building permit for it, yes.
Just a building permit?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm trying to figure out what is the difference between these 3 things I just mentioned. They're all made out of metal, they all have roof, they all serve the same purpose. You can have a big red Morton building in your backyard, that's fine. You can have a big red carport in your backyard, that's fine. But you can't have a shipping container. What is the difference? I mean, I don't see that. A carport, it's a big open thing, you can't hide nothing. You know, whatever you got in there, everybody's gonna see. It can face the street, it can be 10 feet from the road, whatever. But a shipping container, at least you can shut the door, hide what you got, you know. But they're all used for the same purpose. The only difference is the name. So just kind of think about that. That's discrimination against a shipping container. So, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Well, and I would say to those comments, when we initially adopted some code in 2020, we were really strict. I think any version that you adopt today is really going to open this up to allow more containers. But I don't want to, we don't want to go, crazy where we don't have any standards. But maybe this will need to be opened up again, I don't know. But we're taking small steps to make sure we're, as you mentioned, we're not creating more issues in the future by doing this. So just wanted to mention that.
Anyone else that would like to speak in favor? Anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Last call. Okay, I'm going to close it for public comment. So commission, open to discussion on how we want to move forward. I think Mr. Schweitzer mentioned, I think he brings up a good point. It came up at the BZA meeting, chicken coops, removable, no restrictions. So I know there's other things out there, but I think we got to start somewhere. So, and I think most people that I've talked to, it's just about the aesthetics. I don't think if somebody had a chicken coop that was falling apart, you'd want that next to you. That wouldn't want to sit on your back patio and look at that either. But anyway, so again, open discussion. If you want to talk about ag, I think that's a good thing, place to
I think you're on the
stop.
exact dead track, because you do have to have some kind of stipulations, because there is going to be those situations where somebody is going to take advantage, and you got to have something in place for those situations. But aesthetics is a big thing, and what's going to fall into that, it's a big word, it doesn't necessarily go with governmental agencies, but we're going to have to use a little common sense whenever it comes to, oversight on these things.
So if you wanted to carve out something for ag use, how would you define ag use? Would you require them to be, operating as a farm? How would you do that?
It wouldn't have, it's just like whenever, oh gosh dang it, was here before. Him and his dad was going to put a shipping container up on their farm because they're real secure. They was going to be able to put their four-wheeler in there and mowers in there and things of that nature. Construction companies on their job sites use them just for that reason. But those are on bigger farms. They're over 40 acres and
I may have a starting point for you. So I just wrote the condition, shipping containers used as farm buildings on 40-plus acres are exempt from this section as long as they meet the setback requirements.
I think that's great.
That's fine with me.
Sounds good. Okay. Any other comments on that?
I just want to say I agree with the aesthetics part of that, because when we were talking about whether or not they need to be screened a certain percentage, I don't know, it seems to me that we're trying to accomplish the same thing by just doing the aesthetics thing, and I think it allows the flexibility. Are we going to, I don't know how far down you would parse the, percentage of obstruction by some screening device, trees or whatever. But I think we need to be able to give the latitude to the folks who are putting it up and to our staff who are going to get out there and enforce this stuff to say, look, let's not get locked in here. Let's do what makes common sense, and let's and bringing in, of course, the HOAs in those cases where it's appropriate, I think is an important thing. So that seems to be the main issue, and the ag issue that you just mentioned seems to be satisfactorily kind of dealt with. So I think we're in a pretty good place on this thing myself.
I agree.
I just want to say that I like all of the proposals that you made and would support those. Those changes, additions that you suggested, they all seem to be reasonable. I like them. And I think doing something for ag on sufficiently large acreage to exempt them from the requirements is a reasonable thing to do.
So do you want to add what Director Jones has added for the ag exemption to that?
I'd be happy with that.
How do you want to move forward? Do you want to clean this up and present something back to us? Do you want us to move forward using the verbiage that's been added?
Well, I'd rather move forward if the counselor is okay with us is comfortable with us making a motion with, because it sounds like we're going to amend the proposal. What I'm hearing is you want to go with the September proposal with the chairman's
Modifications.
revisions, plus adding a condition for the 40-plus acre farm building use, but you want to keep the acreage minimum at 3 acres. Nothing under 3 acres would be allowed a shipping container. Am I understanding that correct?
That's what I would like.
If you do that, I think that'll save a lot of these HOA issues. I think a lot of that will be diminished substantially.
And we would still address the HOA in the application
Yeah,
process
we
as well.
definitely still need to do that. I would agree.
So the question for the councilor is, can we get there with them making a motion, or do we need to? So as long as you include that you're making a motion to approve the September version with the updates, revisions presented by the chairman, and the condition of the farm buildings on 40-plus acres, then I think we can get there. You can make a motion, and we take a vote tonight.
To get all that?
So who wants to tackle this?
Can't say ditto.
So September proposal with revisions by chairman and condition exempting farm buildings on 40-plus acres as long as they meet the setback requirements.
Okay, that last bit. Okay, I'll make a proposal. Move that we accept the September version with the updates made by the chairman and adding in a exemption for farm buildings on ag of over 40 acres, except for the setback provisions.
Have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote?
Randall Morris,
Yes.
David Rotis.
Yes.
Tom Degenhart,
Yes.
Mike Brinkley,
Yes.
Jerry Nolte,
Yes.
Tom Decker,
Yes.
and Chairman Mark Beggs.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And this is a recommendation that goes to the commission, correct? And then they'll make the final ruling?
Correct, and I haven't even looked at the schedule, so if anybody's watching this and wants to know when it goes to commission, please check with the Planning and Zoning Office.
Good. Any other business?
I just wanted to thank Brad Scarlett as well for his time on the commission. Really enjoyed him and appreciated his willingness to serve. And then to mention that the county is taking applications. If anybody watching or in the audience would like to apply to be on the Planning and Zoning Commission, stipulation is you have to live in unincorporated Clay County, and there is an application if you go to claycountymo.gov. And if you have issues, feel free to call the Planning and Zoning Office.
Okay. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for participating.
Thank you.